Welcome, Blue Peace crew, to an episode of Blue Table Talks. All right. So Blue Table Talks is basically where we talk. We chop it up about some of the issues and some of the struggles and some of the triumphs,
right?
That we come across in raising children with special needs. So
yeah,
it's just kind of like an open forum for us right now. But we're hoping that you, as the Blue Peace crew, will join in the comments. Interact with us, share your experiences, and we'll tackle some issues that we face. A lot of the issues that we face, as parents of children with special needs, are unique. Some things, all parents go through with children, of course, but there are some issues that are really unique to parents who have kids with special needs. So
it's very true. Yeah, it's really just about just all things that all parents deal with when it comes to parenting children, but also too, just like you just said, especially those children with special needs. And as you know, I'm not sure if you've seen our channel, it might be your first time, maybe not, but we do have 4 beautiful boys, and 3 of them are on the autism spectrum. So of course, that's where we're coming from, and we just want to definitely educate the community, just open the door, just have that discussion about special needs, autism, just everything, so we can all just be aware, so we can just be a greater community together.
For sure. So today we're going to be talking about a pretty relevant topic in today's landscape.
Yes.
So if you're watching currently, there's been a lot of unrest around the country. There's been a lot of protests. There's been some rioting. There's been some looting, and it's stemming from an issue that's been going on for years.
That's very true.
Yeah. So interactions with the police, specifically with African Americans, but with minorities in general. So there's a lot of good things that are going on as far as change, as far as hopefully new laws and regulations will be put into place. But what we want to talk about today is the unique challenge that we have having, children that are young men that are African American, but that are also autistic.
Yeah.
Because it can present an even greater challenge, because some of the things that they do, or some of the ways that they behave, or some of the mannerisms that they have, can lend itself to a police officer who's not familiar with it feeling like that's threatening behavior. So
exactly. I mean, we've heard stories. Actually, I believe it's been a few years, we've heard stories where they're having situations where police approaching children with special needs. And I believe a couple of years ago, the therapist got shot when he was trying to run in and protect his client, actually.
Right.
And then a while back, sometime last year, there was an incident in the Costco store with a older man. He was special needs. He was out with his parents. Not sure the details, but anyways, he somehow walked up on an off-duty police officer and his family, and it was fatal. He ended up, being shot. His parents also too, but they're still living. But and their whole battle in the lawsuit, their fight is they were saying, we're trying to explain he has special needs. He's not trying to harm you. They weren't harmed. They were unarmed. Excuse me.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it can be a really tough situation, and as parents, it's our job to protect our kids, and so we definitely want to. It kind of can pose a challenge, because I know. Like, we're going to talk to, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to talk to our oldest, Junior, about dealing with police. But it's kind of nuanced, because you don't want to, especially for Junior, I know, when you tell him things, like, he will take a lot of that stuff literally. So I don't want him to be afraid of police, per se.
Right.
But I do want him to understand how to interact, or as best to the best of his ability, how to interact with a police officer if they're asking you to do things, if they're questioning you, and
Yeah, we just think it's important that all of us, sit down and talk with our children about, if they are approached by the police, if they have an interaction, or if something happens, whether they're by themselves or with a group, we just, feel like that's important that we all talk with our children in our homes. But definitely special needs is like, whoo, you really got to go in there and, really talk with them. And it's kind of twofold, because it's like not only on our end, like just talking to our child, but then it's like we feel like you got to let the community and the police know too, because they will do some things that they are atypical, they are, they're not normal. It looks abnormal, a lot of things they may do. So it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's definitely challenging. Because when you think about it, like an interaction with a police officer, normally they're going to be asking you, a lot of times they'll say, hey, in a situation where you got pulled over or something, they thought you were inebriated, hey, walk in a straight line. Or they're telling you, put your hands behind your back, or show me your ID, or whatever the case may be. And I know a lot of times kids with autism, and I'm just speaking from experience with Junior, sometimes he doesn't do so well when, you're giving him direct instructions one after the other, like do this, do this, do
very
this.
True. That's very
so, at the clinic where he works with Miss Brandy, a lot of times they have talked about how when they're having like dance time and they're giving instructions like, hey, wave your hands or shake your leg, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And we run into issues with like non-compliance.
That's very true.
And so in a clinic setting, that's, okay, cool.
Yeah, right. They know what's going on. They understand. They're there to address it.
Exactly.
But someone who doesn't know you, that can just lead to many things.
Exactly. So that is a real fear. I know for me, as a father, is, him running into a situation like he could just be, walking home from school or something. There's police, up and down the street, and they're just here to, make sure everybody's safe. But you just never know, if they ask him to do something and he responds kind of in a quirky kind of way,
that's true.
which he does sometimes.
Right.
And that's just how he is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
we're used to it. We're good with it. We understand it, but
that's the fear, is because, we understand it. The community, I'm sure you guys understand it, but do police officers understand? Do they have that training in place? I know we were watching the show with the Pete's, Holly Robinson Pete, and they were talking about how police, I think over there, are having to go through sensitivity training and things like that. So,
and I think it, different places all over the country, I do think they are doing that, opening the doors. Of course, it's not everywhere 100%.
Right.
We know, but it needs to be 100% though, right? I mean, don't you agree? It needs to be everywhere.
Yeah.
It needs to be something they're doing. So, we just, like we said, we're going to talk to our child, and we're just going to, it's hard. It's sad to think about. It's just as a mom, honestly, it's not even just about like being autistic or special needs, just in general, whether it's special need or not, when my child hits the door, when they walk out and when they do things, it's like, it's always going to be in my mind, in my head, just making sure that they're okay, making sure that they're safe, making sure they come back home safe. And, that I've helped them and instilled and provided and just gave them all the tools so they could be successful. It's kind of hard too, because they're young, and I just, you just feel like you don't want to take the innocence from the youth, because they're children. Like my husband was saying earlier, you don't want to feel like, oh, I have to be afraid of the police or anything like that. So it's kind of a hard balance to, just doing those things, because you just want to drive that point in, but you just want to be careful with it at the same time. I mean, what do you feel like as a father from a dad's perspective?
It's tough. I mean, being a African American male, like we said earlier in the pod, in the episode, it's something that I have to be aware of, and I have to be, and what I can appreciate is that my parents had the talks with me. You know what I mean? They let me know, hey. Now, first and foremost, I want to say, if you are, people who are in situations where they've been pulled over by a police officer and, they weren't compliant or weren't as compliant as they should have been, and situations happen, that is unfortunate and that is not right. Just because that person may not have complied as they should have, that doesn't mean they should have died. Right. So that's wrong. But what I will say is I can appreciate that my parents had these talks with me, so they let me know, hey, if a police officer pulls you over, this is how you need to be respectful. You need to say yes, sir, no, sir, no, ma'am, whatever the case may be. If they ask you to see, your ID or whatever, hand them your ID. Make sure you always have your ID on you. Make sure it's easy to get to. Like, they had these conversations with me. So, and that's not to say that would completely eliminate the possibility of that still happening, but it betters the chance, I guess.
Right, yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with my sons. And that's where I say it's even more nerve-wracking, though, because not only are they African American, but they have this, they have the situation where they may not respond in the most logical way. Like, their instincts are going to be to, freeze up. That might be to freeze up. It might be to run. It might be to, you know what I mean?
It's very true.
So.
That's very true. And I know you're a male and, your parents taught you that and that's what you were told growing up. But guess what? Even for me as a female, my parents did the same thing with me. They talked to me about, how to conduct myself and things if I'm approached by the police. Just like you said, I guess with our culture, we're very aware and we've been aware for a long time. So even though I was a female, I do have an older brother, but even if I was a female, my parents let me know, what the deal was and that I, need to carry myself accordingly. And like you said, we're looking at another piece here because we're raising, children with special needs. And so, and really that, it just really doesn't have to do with any race because it's just across the board. I mean, it's not about race or culture because you know what? The case I just talked about in the Costco store, they were Spanish, I believe, or Mexican. So it's like, I'm not sure, but they weren't even black. So I'm not even saying like, oh, it's a black thing. Like, no, we're not saying that at all. But we just know, the realities, the times. And like my husband said earlier, it's really nothing new. It's been going on a long time.
For sure.
We're hoping for change, hoping, things will get better, but.
Absolutely. So the main point we want to get across is just to have these conversations with your kids. And like we said, like Black just said, it's not just African Americans, especially when we're talking about kids with special needs, because no matter if you're white, Hispanic, whatever the case may be, if you are acting, if you have certain quirks about you, if you have certain behaviors that could be seen as threatening, it doesn't matter what race you are.
That's right.
So
that's true.
I think it's important that as a community, we have these talks with our kids. We make sure that they know how to interact with a police officer if you find yourself in that situation, what you need to do. Do you make sure they know our phone number if we're not around, so.
That's, and I guess we're talking about like out and about, something has to your approach for the police, but these, these things can even go down in schools.
True.
And we do talk to our son about that, like, how you have to act in school, how you have to act accordingly with teachers, authorities, because there's a lot of situations and cases that even happen in school and there goes your child and you can't do anything about it. They're in with what? The county, the system, the courts, whatever. You have no control at that point.
Right. So it's important to have those talks. We're going to have a talk with our oldest junior and we're going to, and hopefully it'll kind of help. Maybe if you're thinking about having these kinds of conversations with your child, maybe it'll kind of give you a few things to think about, a few things that you may want to bring up in that conversation. So we hope it helps you guys. But
definitely.
yeah, it's important to have these conversations with your kids.
And we want y'all to, comment to us too.
For sure.
Definitely, interact with us, comment, whatever. Like if you have any situations or anything that you've personally experienced or know someone's experienced, definitely comment, let us know, or any questions. Definitely, we want you to reach out to us.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get into our conversation with Junior. And so check it out. And like I said, comment, and if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and become a part of the Blue Peas crew. Okay. All right. We'll see you guys here in a second.